everybody to today's lesson, CSS Shadows. We are going to be looking at how to create shadows, and the two types of shadows we're going to be looking at today will be text shadow and the box shadow. So this is how we're going to be putting shadows around our text, and the box shadow is how we're going to be putting shadows around our boxes. So see you in the code section. So I have a simple HTML with each one saying this is a text shadow effect. If I refresh this, this is what we have. So we are going to add some simple text shadow to this, and we are gradually going to build it up. So I'm going to say H1, and then I'm going to say text shadow. Oops, not text align, text shadow. I'm going to say 2 pixel by, and let me just show you something, by 2 pixels. So if I refresh this as is, you can see the shadow effect, right? So the first 2 pixel is horizontal 2 pixel, and the second one is the vertical 2 pixel, right? So if I say 1 pixel, refresh this, you can see 1 pixel horizontal and 2 pixel vertical. Good. So that's how we can add, in its simplest state, how we can add box shadow to this, right? So let's just keep it at 2 for now. Okay. And it doesn't look pretty because it's the same color and it's not visible. So we're going to add a color to this. So I can now add a color. I can say royal blue and see how it looks like. So you can see the royal blue shadow, right? So you have the black text, but the shadow is royal blue. Good. So that is how to add color to the shadow effects, right? And then we can add uh, a blur to the shadow, right? If you want to add a blur to the shadow, you can add a blur. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And the way we do that is the first two, horizontal, vertical. The third one is going to be the blur. And the blur kind of like spreads out the color, like it kind of blurs it out. So we're going to give it a 5 pixel blur and spot the difference. You see that the blue, the blur has become blur, right? So it's blur, so you can now see it. So we can, that's how we add the blur to it. Good. So now I want to create another one, but with white text, right? And then I'm gonna blur that. So now I'm gonna create, just so I can see the difference. Maybe I can just go here, text shadow. I'm gonna use the same thing, 2 pixel by 2 pixel by 4 pixel, which is the blur. And I'm gonna use black. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add my font color as white. Okay. And when I refresh this, you can see this is the text shadow effect, right? So the font color itself is white, but because of the blur and then the shadow, it gives it this nice effect, right? Okay. So the next one that we want to look at is, I realized that I overrode this. So just so that I did it, I put a class name and then I put the styling for the second one in that class name so we can see the difference. So we could also have multiple shadows. And for that, I'm going to create another one and I'm going to do multiple as my class name. Okay. And then let me just copy this for now. multiple. Okay, so now I'm gonna still do the white. I'm gonna do the 2 pixel black, but I'm gonna add another shadow to this. I'm gonna say, give me a 1 pixel by 1 pixel by 10 pixel blur, and this time I'm gonna say blue. Right? So just if I just want to refresh this, you can see it has two effects, shadow effects, right? And again, you can add another one if you wanted. So I just put a comma, and this time I'm gonna say 0 pixel by 0 pixel. I just want the blur, so I'm gonna say 5 pixel, 5 pixel. This time I'm gonna say yellow. So when I refresh it, it's not really clear. So let me say 10 right here and say 10 here. And if I refresh it, yep. So now you have three shadows. You have black, you have a blue, and then you have a dark blue. And so you have this nice, cool effect. Going forward, the box shadow property simply applies shadow to elements. And we are going to take a look at some examples. So I'm going to create a div. I'm going to create a div. And in this div, this is a box shadow. Okay, and then I'm going to style this div. I'm going to give it a width of 250 pixels, a height of 250 pixels, give it some padding, 20 pixels. Okay, and then background color of tomato, and now the box shadow. I'm going to have the box shadow and horizontal first, 10 pixels by 10 pixels. Okay, so when I refresh this, I have the black box shadow, which is the default. Good. So that is what you get. The first one is the horizontal. The second one is your vertical. Good. So now, if I wanted to add color, same thing. I can add gray to this. So now I have my solid, my border, my shadow, but gray. Okay, good. And now let's add the blur. Okay, so I can add 5 pixels to this to blur our shadow. So it looks blurrish, right? So now we have our shadow with a blur. So all the styling with it that applies to our text, we can also do it with our box. So we don't have to really take an example, but we could just take one example if you guys want, and then just create one. Okay, so let's do that. I just realized that we are already close to the we are already at the 9 minute mark. So I would rather end here and see you in the next lesson. Bye bye.